You're listening to TechRecruit, a podcast that educates talent acquisition and recruitment professionals on innovation to attract talent across all industries. We're glad you're here.
Welcome to the TechRecruit podcast. My name is Stacey Broadwell. I'll be your host today. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Melissa Arvanitaki, and she is the manager for talent acquisition for Outlook Amusements. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone.
Melissa, you are working for a really cool company based in Los Angeles, California. Tell me a little bit about what it is that Outlook Amusement does.
Sure. Outlook Amusements, we have a family of brands that are dedicated to developing technologies and building connections with our customers. We actually have three different brands, California Psychics, Psychic Encounters, and Conexiones Psíquicas, which is our Spanish brand. And from the names, you could tell we do telephone psychic readings. It's a really fun company to work for. It's really rewarding because we really do try to help people get a peace of mind, get answers. And so we have a team that we've cultivated to connect our premier advisors with customers and getting their needs met.
So that sounds like a very interesting space to be in. And you've been there for quite some time. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing at Outlook Amusements.
Currently, I am the talent acquisition manager, so I'm really trying to help develop processes and different ways to bring in the best talent in LA to come work for our organization. We hire across the whole company, so we do have a call center, we have technology, we're .NET shop, we have marketing as well, so we do acquisition and retention. And last year, we opened up an office in San Antonio, so we have our creative services and accounting team down there. So it's been a lot of fun learning how to work in two different states with the time difference, and using things like Zoom has been really awesome.
And you are the head of talent acquisition predominantly, even though your title is manager, you report to the head of HR.
Yes.
And you have two recruiters underneath you, one in San Antonio and one on site in Los Angeles. So you are managing the whole process. And with that comes its challenges, especially with the growth and you being that team of one kind of looking for advice on where to go. And
Yes.
We'll talk a lot about that today. So we're going to talk about how you harness data in talent acquisition and take it and move it forward to make decisions. And so that's going to be our focus today. But first, I want to ask you, how did you get into talent acquisition? What was your start in your career?
My start was actually here in this company. It was, I was living out of LA. I wanted to return to Los Angeles. And in my previous role, I worked for an HR department. And that 1 year was enough to kind of make me a candidate for position as an HR assistant here. And after a couple of years, I was just the HR coordinator, and we got a little too big, and I couldn't do the recruiting plus benefits, and they said pick a side, and I picked recruiting, and it's been a happy road ever since. So I've just kind of been growing in the position. So one of the fun parts of the position is there is a lot of opportunity to kind of try different things, but at the same time, because I have no real other company experience to rely on, reading blogs, going on LinkedIn, reaching out to people like yourself has been just amazing to be able to reach out to this talent of a network of talent to be able to really connect with others and get their perspectives on problems that we run into.
There hasn't really been a community for recruitment professionals before I launched LAX TechRecruit and had the conference, and we're just building this amazing opportunity for professionals to lean on each other and ask each other advice on things and share resources of what works for somebody and what doesn't work. And so that's what we're doing today. So I want to ask you about how you're moving forward with your particular challenge, and being how you harness the data of a company within talent acquisition, within HR, and move it forward to make decisions. Tell me about that challenge and where you guys are going with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for us, it's one of those problems that I think that a lot of companies have, where you kind of know there's a problem, but you don't know how to put your finger on it and to really say, this is what we really need to figure out is the issue. we're you know, when we first started with the challenges, to be honest, it was more like we're not recruiting fast enough. Fast enough for who? You know, who do you want to compare yourself to? Are we getting enough candidates for the pool? So like I said, we kind of have to first figure out what the challenges were and then address the issue then. For us, we just started collecting data. We started tracking how many people were coming in per week per position, but we didn't know how we were going to report that out. So we do have a little bit of data kind of hidden in different pockets of different Excel spreadsheets. What we ended up doing is we said, I don't know what to do. So we hired an external consulting firm named Riviera Advisors, and they came in and did this really great analysis on our company.
You have data in so many different areas that you're not sure how to get all that data together to streamline it to make one specific decision or multiple decisions. And, you know, where's that data coming from? What does it say? Do we collect the data? And where do we go from here? So one of the things that you did, and not really kind of having experience at another company, some experience that you could pull upon, is that you brought in an advisor consultant. So tell me who you contacted and what they did for you.
Sure. So we actually reached out to Riviera Advisors. My director of HR, Dana Ray, she actually knew of them from a previous life, and she was able to bring them in, and they did an extensive analysis of our team. We did surveys with previous applicants. They did focus groups with our hiring managers and executives to really get an understanding of not just our perspective from the talent acquisition team on how we were doing the job, but also because there are customers and stakeholders. So we were able to bridge some of the questions and understood their thoughts and perspectives on what the problem may be. So it was really interesting to get those results. I will say that for any talent acquisition person that goes through this process, the first time I did it, when I was told what was going to happen, there was a part of me that was like, good, we're getting help. And a part of me was like, no, I want to try to figure this out. But it was a fantastic thing to happen. With the results, it validated a lot of my gut feelings. And that's kind of what we'll circle back with the data stuff, but it validated a lot of what I felt could be done better. And it also, a lot of some of the stuff that they presented were ideas that I had kind of floated up throughout the years. So I felt it really just validated me in terms of, okay, I am good at this. This is good. So it was really a fantastic experience to go through, although at the beginning, I'll admit the ego took a little hit, but it's good. It was, in the end, you grow better for feedback, right? It makes you better.
I think you nailed it on a couple of issues there. It's really hard to step out of your own process and ask for help because, you're owning that process and oftentimes I found when you seek out training or help or consultation, you find that a lot of the ideas that you had and a lot of things that you were doing were actually right on point. Your intuitive nature tells you that these are the things that you want to get done. And it's just being able to have that validation of your process, and that helps you move forward in doing it correctly. I find that so often just in talent acquisition, and I can share some stories too, but I wanted to ask you a question because I thought this was really interesting. You said that when Riviera Advisors came in and they were doing surveys and they were doing focus groups and they were asking questions. So what were some of the questions that they were asking your hiring managers? Do you recall?
I'm trying to remember. I think some of them had to do with the process itself. I know one of the big questions that I walked away kind of remembering was the question of whose job is it to recruit for the company? And kind of like the feedback of it's everybody's job versus it's Melissa's job, was surprising. It's like, no, it's everybody's job. But that kind of, it feeds into the idea of employer brand, it feeds into brand ambassadors, and it's just this marketing, this whole realm of marketing that I know is a whole other monster to tackle. But I think that it was a little bit of an eye-opener where you realize that it's fantastic that they have that much faith in me to do the job, but then it's like, oh, I'm the only one that they think should be doing the job. And not everybody feels that way, but it's something that did kind of float up. And I was like, okay, well, I approach it differently now. I'm going to change my tactics and be more communicative and engage leaders and other people in the organization to join me in networking events. So it's just a way to pivot, the strategies that you have.
I feel like one of the important things that elevates a recruiter and hiring managers is coming across collaboratively.
Yes.
It is a collaboration, that effort, that ability to say, like you mentioned, that it's not me recruiting, it's we recruiting.
Yeah.
It's all of us together. Everybody has a role. Everybody has a responsibility to get great talent in the door. And whether that's using your social media, your network, or, getting together and having the right plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really great. So that's working well for you.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit better. I know we tweaked the intake meetings, how we take them. We formalize them a little bit more instead of the drive-bys of like so-and-so, got promoted. You just want to backfill, looking for somebody similar. Yes, we kind of got away from that. We went to a little bit more formalized. Let's talk about some of the critical success factors. What are the things that you absolutely want? What are some of the nice to haves in terms of personality or traits? What are the things that you absolutely don't want? Which our number one don't want is somebody who's not a team player, because we're so collaborative in our company. So having that as the talent acquisition team, when we meet somebody, if those are the things that are coming up as red flags, we know not to move people along. And really understanding what's important to our hiring managers, so they're really just getting the really good candidates that they almost have to just, confirm the technical skill set for the role.
One of the things you mentioned as well, the intake meeting.
Yes.
And how you're doing that differently. And are you tracking the data so you have a form that you use? What is your intake meeting like?
So we do have a form. We basically fill in the form with the requirements that we have from the job description. And then we meet with the hiring manager to get more of the critical success factor personality traits that they're looking for, and just confirming what the job description is, it is what they're looking for. So if a job description says 3 to 5 years of experience, is that more on the 3? Is it more on the 5? Are you willing to, even contemplate somebody that has 1 or 2 years if they're really super technical? Like really kind of honing in on what their real care abouts are instead of a piece of paper that says what they should be hiring. Another thing is really coming up with accountabilities with each other. They're going to get back to me if I send them a resume or give them feedback. They promise to get back to me within 48 hours or 24 hours, or how much lead time should I give you if I'm going to set up a phone interview on your calendar or an in-person interview. I know with my tech team, they won't do lunch interviews. They're like, please, this is my only time throughout the whole day that belongs to me. And I know that instinctively not to do that with them. I know with some of my marketing team, they don't like to do anything before 10 a.m. So this is just more formalizing it. And it's not just to kind of have them commit on paper, but it's also for legacy purposes for later on. If we're looking to hire somebody in the future, we can just pull it out and say, okay, this is what we looked for in the past. What worked, what didn't work. Let's have that as a jumping point.
So you have your intake meetings, you have a form, and now how are you collecting that data? Are you keeping it in an applicant tracking system? Where is that data housed?
Right now, it is housed on my computer on the shared drive. It is going to be, it's funny because we just launched a new applicant tracking system with our new HRIS system last year. We went with Vibe. And so really understanding that system and how to be able to upload information to make it a more robust system to use. And it's still building up a little bit. And, so for right now, it is kind of doing a little bit of the managing back and forth. But we went from Taleo, which is kind of like this Maserati of job, of an ATS, And we're perfectly happy with what we have now because it's actually more in line with what we really need. But it's good. We're moving towards having it all uploaded in that one area at some point.
Do you find that having your recruitment team, the 2 recruiters who work underneath you, to be able to implement the data correctly can be a challenge, or has it been easier now that you know what you need to track?
I think that one of the challenges with that is that everybody thinks about data differently in terms of what they feel that data should be. And at the beginning, when they came on board, we said, this is what we're looking to fill this out without a lot of context as to why we needed it. So now that we talk a little bit more about why it's so important to track it on a weekly basis as we report up into the CEO, our talent acquisition function, it makes sense now why you want to know how many phone interviews are happening that week or how many people are coming in that, during the week. It's just to understand kind of this activity report for the week. And of course, being a smaller company where you're probably recruiting 3 or 4 positions at a time, it's not this insane amount of data. So I can only imagine what working for a bigger company like Google, Facebook, how their data processes are. Because for us, it's just kind of building it out little by little.
I'm sure that they have dedicated teams of scientists.
I'm sure they do. To me, it's one of these like, okay, I'm going to do it over here with a little Excel spreadsheet in my VLOOKUP, which I'm very proud of.
You should be proud of that. So it's interesting because the people analytics, whether it's internal, whether it's external, what the evolution that I really see is that you have an ability to track your internal data, which is what we're talking about. We're tracking, what your recruiters are putting in. We're tracking your intake forms. We're tracking the amount of candidates you're interviewing. You're tracking phone calls, emails, whatever that might be. But, and establishing a baseline for future performance, right? And whether or not certain things are working. But the evolution I really see is being able to harness the social media aspect of it, where you have that full funnel, whether you have the outreach and the outreach programs and you're able to put out your campaigns and actually see how that engagement online is being received by your audience. And then being able to look at that data and tweak it as necessary and remarket it. Those type of things are really, really interesting. Are you guys doing anything on that side?
Well, it's funny that you should mention that. I was talking to our VP of analytics about my challenge with data and how do I pull data to be able to look at it the right way? Because you can have a bunch of numbers, but if you don't know what the story is, there's just a bunch of numbers. So he started talking to me about comparing it to digital marketing. So talking about funnels, customer funnels. When a candidate applies, it's sort of like when a customer goes to your homepage, or a candidate goes and looks at your job. If they get through the first funnel and then they go to the next funnel, and obviously you end up with the candidate that you want to hire. So really learning a lot about digital marketing has really helped me think about data very differently. And I've also asked for help for some of my brethren who work on my marketing team, and they've really been very open about putting trackers on our websites, on our jobs, and saying, okay, let's see where people are coming from and see how they end up. And with the applicant tracking system, it's a little challenging because you kind of go into a funnel and then you kind of get lost because we don't control the data. So trying to be creative about how we do that. And when a candidate finishes applying, maybe they come back to our corporate website, so we're able to complete the customer journey data-wise, and then we're able to see entry point and then coming out point. But those are all things that as a recruiter or HR person, like, you don't really know. These are legit digital marketing, in the trenches terms. So it's been really fun to learn all this, and it's also a little scary how they track all our data online.
It's very eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah. So we do a lot of, we do Indeed sponsorship. And so I've been really grateful with Indeed because they've been really wonderful in explaining how their process works. And I have a really awesome account manager that helps me. And, being able to learn how the aggregators pull the information from your website is another level of being able to not manipulate, but being able to capitalize on how your information is kind of spread out, and you start learning more about SEO and how those links are tracked. And so, to your point of, you only track when they walk in the door, but now, the more you understand, the more you're going to be able to go one step further outside and maybe go to the porch or maybe go to the sidewalk. Well, maybe you will never be able to be out there on the street, but at least it's better than just only understanding who's walking in your own door, right?
Yeah, and I think that's so key, being able to team up with the vendors that you're utilizing and have a representative there who can help you, educate you, and walk you through the process. So one of the tools you're using is Indeed, and you mentioned that your representative there has educated you on that. What are some of the things that he's explained to you, and maybe you can share with our audience how Indeed is helping you?
Sure. So when I have an account with Indeed, and whenever I post a job on our applicant tracking system, it automatically triggers Indeed to pull the jobs directly into feeding into their organic searches. Obviously, you could sponsor a job and then you pay extra money for the pay-per-click campaign, and that's how the job comes up as very specialized. There is a difference, though, with desktop searches and mobile searches. You actually have to go an added step with your ATS to make sure that it's being pulled into the mobile site. And that's something that I learned the hard way because someone looked for the job and said, we can't find it on the app. And so I had to go through this whole process of making sure that everything is showing up properly. But I think that it is wonderful to be able to have a really good rep who sits down with you and says, okay, if you have a job posted, and the reason we went through this process is because there was a window of time, I believe it was about 3 months, where we turned off our old ATS and we were waiting for the new ATS to turn on. So we had to go to the old way of people submitting resumes on our corporate website, getting emailed, and I had to hold on to them. And so
pain.
I had to go through this back and forth of how do I get off the, Taleo getting automatically pulled, how do you pull our corporate website, individual job links, and then get back on the ATS. And on top of that, our companies in San Antonio and in Burbank, we use the same applicant tracking system. So it kind of gets a little bit muddled. So understanding how that works really helps us when we are going to the next step of sorting out the branding with the two different companies. So those are all things on roadmaps of how important it is, what it looks like to a candidate when they're applying for a job. They're going to link for a job and it's going to go somewhere else. And what is that company? What does that mean? So just being able to understand technically to the end and be able to say, you know what, we have to find a different way to do this because the candidate may get really confused and then we've lost the candidate forever because it looks like maybe we don't have our act together. So that's, to me, I was really grateful for the conversation that I had with, shout out to Freddie at Indeed, when he sat out and really explained. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how are they getting confused with the company? Do you have multiple brands?
So Outlook Services is our company in San Antonio, and Outlook Amusements is here. So I should probably say that. Yeah. So when you click on the job, if you're clicking for San Antonio, you see Outlook Services, but it's all coming from the same ATS. And so on Indeed, it pulls Outlook Amusements jobs, Outlook Services, so I actually figured out a way to fix it. And I figured it out like in my commute a couple days ago, but it's about launching that. Yeah.
How many hours did that take you
to solve?
Through being able to fix that problem? Was it all morning?
It was, it was one of these, actually it took like a week because Indeed didn't even know what was going on. So for them, they were like, whoa, we just learned something new as well.
Because one of the things when you're sitting in this role of having to manage all of your technology stack within talent acquisition is that you're often troubleshooting all these problems, and it takes a long time when you have these roles that you have to fill, but then you have to act as this like admin who's trying to like get to the problem of something, and it's something so small, but it takes a long time to ramp up and learn that whole thing.
Yeah, but it's funny because I would run to my marketing manager and say, okay, can you please explain SEM, like explain why this is happening, because I don't understand the terms. And so, he would sit and explain what, part of why it was showing up this way because of the rules, the Google rules, right? Okay, got it. Now I could go back and ask more intelligent questions. And I think one of the big questions that I learned to ask when I've been asking for help is saying, like, what question should I be asking you that I'm not asking you? Can you tell me, like, if I'm missing something? And so because I'm going to keep on Indeed because they did a really, really great job in helping me troubleshoot all this. And they had gotten another tech, and it almost felt like a journey when we finally fixed it. We were like, yes, if we were together, I would have taken them out for drinks because it was really exciting to just figure out what was wrong. And, now at least I'm able to communicate that to my team of like, this is just how it is because it's how it is. But we can go to the next step and adjust it accordingly to be a little bit more successful and streamlined.
So when we talk about Indeed and we talk about job boards, we're talking about advertising and seeing the analytics behind your advertising and how it's doing, where people are coming from, who's clicking on your jobs, and where they found them is key, because that's your ROI. If I'm not getting any clicks on my advertisement, then why am I paying you? It's about holding the vendors responsible and accountable for what their performance is. And so I think it's fantastic that you're able to partner with your digital marketing professional, because oftentimes that is such a key relationship. And you see this evolution where the recruiter, the talent acquisition professional, is becoming more of a digital marketer.
Exactly. And it's funny because I know when we were building out the new application for the new ATS, it was all the candidates were coming in through the corporate website, but it defaulted. It didn't have Indeed or LinkedIn or referral. So we had to go build that as well. And I know Indeed has the ability to add a tracker into your system, so they're able to complete and report back on people who maybe clicked on a sponsored job, and it'll tell you this person came from a sponsored job versus an organic search. So at least it'll tell you whether or not it's worth it for you to be able to spend the money on the sponsoring. So
are you advertising your jobs in any other portals, or like Monster or LinkedIn, or where else are you advertising?
It depends on the job. So tech jobs will go on Dice. We do a lot of outreach on GitHub as well. We do have LinkedIn recruiter seats. We do Indeed as well. And Craigslist on occasion. I mean, I will say, whenever I say Craigslist, people make a face, but Craigslist got us some really awesome people. I mean, at the end, it's a classified job board. And Monster and Career Builder, we kind of stepped away from. Every now and then we'll pull it up when we feel like we need to get a different batch of people. But for the most part, we've been pretty successful with referrals and with the things that we've already kind of prepaid for, like LinkedIn. So, we're good. We're not shy to try new things. And I think, one of my marketing coworkers recommended a new website for marketers, which was digital marketers for analysts, which was kind of exciting because she gets blasted with these emails. She's like, maybe this might be a good website to post jobs on. So it's kind of nice when you kind of have that we're in this together mentality, because there are niche boards that we've never even heard of because we're not in that field.
And that is so key. It's just not the advertising. It's those boards, those communities, those online tech communities where you need to be posting, and just being able to track all that, and also to know where your potential candidates are hanging out, what that persona looks like, what their interests are. That's all part of the research in your data. And, so one of the things that we found is if, when you're looking and you're mapping, you're creating your talent map, as it is, understanding really where your target audience is hanging out, right?
Yep. And I think that, we've been really lucky that our employees kind of report up as to where they hang out. So we kind of do find out some of that stuff. I know I'm blanking out right now in terms of the graphic designer website. Yeah, it'll come back to me later.
Board?
I'm sorry?
The niche board you're talking about?
Yeah. It's funny because I think that, you know, for some people, not just necessarily in my company, but in general, people think that you just post a job on LinkedIn and that's it. And it's like, and you know, we're trying to explain them, well, tech people aren't really on LinkedIn anymore just because they get inundated. Like I know to go to LinkedIn for HR, sales, marketers, that's kind of like the world that lives on LinkedIn. I know for tech people, Dice is kind of good, but they're really kind of more on GitHub. They're more referrals. You kind of have to go to the meetups. You have to go to the HackerX events. More networking is more there for them. So it's really about being creative. And it's funny because you're right. It's like that's where the data comes in. And if we track where people are applying from, not just the people that qualify to get hired, but the people that are not qualified at all. And it's like, well, I posted this job on Career Builder. I don't mean to bag on Career Builder, but if I post on Career Builder and nobody qualified is coming from there, then it's like, well, okay, let me move that job posting somewhere else and that money somewhere else. And so it's been it's really good to kind of see the flip side, not just the successes, but also the not so successes and being able to pivot from those.
So a lot of advertising and budget thrown at job boards for advertising. So how about in the remarketing for do you do any campaigns in general, like on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn? I mean, outside of just advertising a job.
That's actually what we're going to start doing next. We're going to start kind of putting those things together and being able to utilize those networks. So that's actually on my roadmap to kind of kick off. It's very exciting.
It is really exciting. It's one of the things that we do heavily for our conference and our events. So we do the TechRecruit conference in Los Angeles and the Midwest conference, Midwest TechRecruit conference in Chicago, and we do CTO roundtables. But what you can do is Facebook allows for you to put pixels, you know, embedded on your website, so you can track who's visiting your website, and then you can turn around and do a campaign where it submits a banner ad to them while they're on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Like that's remarketing, and that's powerful. So,
it is, yeah. It's very exciting to get into that, and I know that it's been fun to watch the talent acquisitions professionals in my LinkedIn feed kind of become more and more marketers and talk about this. And I know that that's something I forgot. I believe it was one of your posts, or you were responding to a post of somebody that I followed, that if talent acquisition people don't want to be marketers, it's like, you got to evolve with the game, right? But yes, I'm really excited about getting into social media. It's just a whole other world to learn.
It's this evolution in recruitment and talent acquisition. And so you have to be able to harness it. You have to be able to evolve with it and understand it. So it's really an exciting time. So I'm excited to talk about this too.
Yeah.
So what are some of tell me some of the positions you're hiring for. I don't know if you have any, HR recruitment positions that you have currently open. I mean, our audience for this show is talent acquisition professionals. Do you have any of those open?
Actually, depending on when this gets posted, just for you to know, I'm actually moving on to another role in the company. I'm going to move into organizational development. And so we're going to be looking to hire my replacement. So we're going to be looking for somebody who's going to oversee the talent acquisition function of the organization. And it's really exciting because I feel like I've prepped the company for this person to come in and just invoke a lot of change. And we're going to, I'm looking forward to working with somebody, and I'll be able to concentrate on some of these tech issues and not, get weighed down with the day-to-day recruiting, which of course is fun. But at the same time, to your point earlier, it's hard to try to navigate the challenges of why that link isn't working when you have 5 phone interviews to do and look at 30 resumes. So I'm really excited that I'm going to be moving on to something where I can really concentrate on elevating the company in terms of its processes and to bring somebody else on board to be able to give us a new perspective and be able to really help us get us to the next level.
I love how passionate and excited you are, not just in your new move, but to be able to cultivate that new opportunity for somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm interested, what is your new role going to encompass?
It's going to be more of an organizational development role. So just working on various projects. Really, the big project is going to be the social media function, LinkedIn, Indeed, kind of this corporate identity part that has eluded us for a while. So just really trying to get a handle on that and being able to understand the ins and outs of it, and also establishing more of these data points that are necessary. You know, we were talking about how data is important and should we track people from where we should be tracking people. And so what data is important to track instead of spending our time tracking everything and not knowing what to use it for. We can track very specific things and be able to create the baselines and then be able to aim for improvements in the next 6 months to a year, depending on the role. And I know one of the things that when I pitched my action plan for the year, the CEO was wonderful. He sat me down and he's like, this isn't realistic. Like, don't bite off more than you can chew, but I want you to be successful. So really focus. So instead of saying you're going to do this for the whole company, pick one department. Like, what is the one department that if you fix this would give us the biggest impact? And I was like, data analytics. And he goes, okay, concentrate on data analytics.
I was really impressed by the fact that your CEO is so supportive of what it is, your goals and your initiatives. And I totally connect with you in the audacious goal department, because I'm like that too. I set these huge audacious goals for myself. And I think that is important to do that because these are what you want to accomplish. But and I see too, he's trying to reel you in like, okay, focus in one area first and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's really amazing to have, you know, it's one of the things that I feel very lucky about working for a medium-sized company is that he's very accessible to be able to get feedback and get help with. And, you know, there are times when admittedly you're like, no, don't come talk to me. I'm not ready, you know, but at the same time, if he didn't care, he wouldn't be talking to you. So that's the good part, right?
What are some of the positions that you have a challenge in hiring for across the company?
Across the company, I mean, I think that analytics is one of the big ones. We have a data analyst role. I think part of it is just, it's just the market. There's so many people who are looking for analysts is one part. Another one is some of our tech roles. Right now we are looking for another mobile developer. And it's like, again, it's the market. When you talk of the reality is people want to go work, they want something very specific for themselves. Our company is located in Burbank, which is just north of Los Angeles. We're next to the Disney Studios and Warner Brothers Studios. So when people want to come see us, you know, they ask themselves, well, what do you do? What kind of company are you? And it's like, well, we have 150 people and, you know, we have our 3 brands and they're all in the psychic, you know, advice-based area. We work with psychics. And sometimes people are very put off by that. And that's just the reality of who we are. But it's such an amazing place to work. And, you know, we have our little, I gotta go this way, our being a positive force in people's lives. You know, our culture to me is pretty great because we hire people that are inherently nice, right? They want to help other people. And so you don't get a lot of the yelling that you may get in big corporate companies. We have a lot of fun. So finding people that are looking for a stable environment, a place to grow, be it, you know, there's a reality of life too, that when you work for a medium-sized company or a smaller-sized company, there's a ceiling. If I were to pursue a director title, I know I have to go. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, totally am. And I've talked to my boss about it and she's like, well, when you're ready, let's get you ready, you know, prepared for your next adventure. So for us, you know, not being in the hub of Santa Monica or, you know, Silicon Beach could help or hinder, but we're very happy with where we are. So but you give and take, those are all the give and takes that you do. And as a candidate, candidates have to decide what they want from a job. You know, they want the career growth, they want the money, they want the work-life balance. And, you know, we have to see what fits the best.
I feel like those who don't live in Los Angeles don't quite realize how big Los Angeles is.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, it's really not difficult to attract talent from Boston and New York and those colder climates because it's always 72 and sunny here. And who doesn't want to live in that sort of climate? And so there's a huge migration piece for those type of candidates who are looking to be in a better climate. But at the same time, I know that I recruited for companies that were in Pasadena or on you know, in the Burbank side, and pulling from candidates who are on the west side, there's always that like, oh, do I want to take the 405 or do I want to take the 10 to, you know, and it's a long drive, and it's not really that it's far, it's just the traffic component can be a big issue.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that for us, I'll use myself as an example. I've seen jobs in the past that seem interesting, but I would say I don't want to sit in 2-hour traffic each way. Just my quality of life will go out the window. So there are pockets of people that you kind of concentrate on in terms of the realm. I know Pasadena is growing in the tech scene a little bit. They have a little nice startup culture out there with Innovate Pasadena. And I know Burbank, there's a lot of people just within this realm because of the different entertainment companies, and Hollywood is not too far away. So it is about finding those pockets and being able to connect with those groups and seeing, you know, do you want to extend your commute by 10 minutes or do you want to shorten your commute by 20 minutes, depending on where they live? And the reality of LA recruiters, I think it's one of the questions is, would you be okay with the commute to our offices? And one of the trends that I'm seeing is that there's a lot of candidates are asking up front, can I do remote work? Can I telecommute? And it's funny because that's something that I brought up with the previous job that I was recruiting for. I think it was for an iOS developer. And they kept asking, can I recruit? Can I work from home? Can I work from home? And it got to the point where, you know, the leader, which I totally understood why he would want the person on site because there's just so much development happening. But, you know, getting them on board with this is the reality where the market is going. They don't want to drive up here. They're willing to take less money to be closer, to be able to work remotely. Like those are all trade-offs that at some point you as a company have to cross that bridge and decide, is this what we want to do? And I think that this company has been more and more open to that as we get used to using our Zoom rooms and working with our coworkers over in our San Antonio office. Slowly, I'm seeing people here and there work more and more from home. So it's fun. It's good.
If I can offer you some things that maybe I've seen, those are hard to fill positions that you're looking to fill. And yes. I wonder if, like you mentioned, the remote opportunities, I mean, that could open some doors, especially, you know, if you're on the Pasadena side. And there's that dueling sort of thing. It's like Silicon Beach versus Innovate Pasadena, you know, yes. And, you know, it's like that two dueling, like we're innovative. There's a lot of technology companies on that side, on the east side. But also, have you looked into accelerator programs, you know, like Hack Reactor, you know, those accelerator educational platforms that produce full stack engineers and mobile developers? I've had a lot of success in hiring a whole team from those accelerator programs.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I haven't heard of that, so thank you for the recommendation. But I read an article a while ago about how I think up in Silicon Valley there were teams that were being hired, and how that was the ideal, is to hire a team who knows each other's routines and they know how everybody works. So you just kind of hire them by project, and then keep them on if necessary. And I thought that was such an interesting way to hire when you're trying to get something done, versus hiring one person to try to plug them in and then hoping it works with everybody else. But yeah, I have to look into that. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, and on the research side, or on the analyst side, actually used to be a data analyst. That was my career out of college.
Really?
Before I came into recruiting. Yes. Yeah. Melissa, there's times when I still think that I want to be a data scientist. Honest to God. I want to be a data scientist, but instead I do the CTO roundtable, and I do data science events and things like that. So I feel I'm still connected.
There you go.
But ResearchGate, it's the GitHub for data professionals.
Okay, ResearchGate. I gotta look it up.
Like Facebook for research professionals. Check
Nice.
it out. Yeah,
Will do.
welcome.
Thanks.
You know, it's just sharing of resources, right? You've shared so much with us today and what you've been dealing with and your challenges and how you're overcoming them. And hopefully you will be with us at our next LAX Tech Recruit, because that's the whole goal. That's the whole topic. That's the theme, is people analytics and data analytics and harnessing data and digital marketing to attract talent.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited and looking forward to the event. I know I went to your inaugural one, and so it was a lot of fun. And it was, I think one of the things that I loved, you know, to your point earlier, that I think that for a long time, recruiters just felt they had to compete with each other for talent. And it's like, you can't talk to them because they're going to steal your people if you get too close. And now it's just becoming like, let's all, if I can't find somebody if this person I really like, maybe Stacy can find a position for them. You know, let's help each other out and, you know, share the wealth.
It's totally true, because I remember when I first started recruiting, there was other recruiters who wouldn't link in with me on LinkedIn or be part of they just wouldn't, it was that siloed. And so when I had the idea to create this symposium, the sharing of ideas, and everybody got behind it and they were so excited to do it, and coming up to me afterwards and thanking me for creating it was just a very rewarding experience. And I appreciate so much you being part of that. It's amazing.
My pleasure. It's mutual. I'll tell you, I love learning from you.
So what are some of your projects going forward? Do you have anything on the plate that you're really looking to do?
I mean, it's really concentrating on the corporate identity and the branding, just because it's that segue to the world of data and being able to connect with new candidates, and being able to just be more creative with the way we do our posts, not just about the verbiage, but how do we get it out. So I'm hoping to flush out some ideas, and then maybe I'll give you a call and be like, okay, I have an update for you. It's something that I think I got into work, but I'm afraid to say it out loud until I double check some technology stuff. I'm
so excited to hear about how that produces and where you'll be a year from now. Do you guys host events at your offices?
We did used to. We used to host events with LA.net group, I believe they were. It was a .net group handled by somebody that I had met through the agency world, who's one of my agency recruiters, and he just happened to be the president. And so we connected on that and did some hackathons here in offices. And so, you know, we're open to doing it. Making sure that we get the right group in here and making a connection.
I used to be the VP of marketing for the LA.net group.
Oh, and Michael Chang, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael and I worked together at a Fortune 500 agency. I won't say their name.
Yes.
And that's how we both started in recruitment. And he worked on the direct hire, and I worked on the contract team. And he's fantastic. He's always been somebody I've been able to talk to, and just a great partner.
Yeah, he's really amazing. He's wonderful to bounce ideas off of. And what I appreciate about him is that he's very, for sometimes, you know, it's painful, but he's like, that's not going to work. You're like, oh, you know, you kind of hope that it would, but he's able to really hone in on his, on that group, because he knows them so well, and he knows the personalities. And I'm really excited about his new agency that he launched.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys work with staffing agencies?
Yeah, we do. We do have partners. I mean, the reality is that there are times when you just can't. Like, you can't find somebody for the best of your ability. There's just no way. So there are times when we do use agencies. So I do have a few agencies that I call upon when I need them. And developing that really good relationship with the agency is so important. And I think that one of your podcasts before, Tim Sackett had talked a little bit about that. You know, being able to have good relationships with agencies, that it's not a take it or leave it mentality. It is about building a trust. And I was talking to one of my agencies not too long ago, and I made a comment of process. And I said, well, this is why I want you. I was very upfront with him about something going on. He's like, nobody really talks to me this way. And I was like, why not? Like, you're an extension of me. You are part of trying to fill the role. My company, you know, we want to get the right person. If the person comes from an agency, the person comes from an agency. We just want to find the right person. If I find them, great. If they're referred, great. Like, doesn't matter. But I think, and I had this, and I fully admit that this was me when I first started. It was a very combative relationship with agencies, but I felt they were taking away my win, you know? It's like, I wanted to fill the job. And so I had to kind of get over that, because if you find the right one, it makes a huge difference. And also because of the challenges you may have in terms of the data, it's another data validating point. You know, maybe they're having the same issues, they're only finding people that need sponsorship, and that's the reason why you can't find anybody on your end. It's like, oh, okay, great, like let's not a workaround, but let's figure out a different way to resolve it, because it's not just me, it's it's all of it.
Have you had bad experiences with recruiters in the past, and how did you deal with that? Like agencies? I've had a couple. I've had the too pushy agencies, and that's kind of where I draw the line. I mean, because I totally understand that you're doing a job. I get it, you know, and I try to be very respectful when I say no. I try to say it with love. I understand it, but if I tell you very plainly how I want this relationship to work, is like, hear me out, and you're trying to like tell me what to do or circumvent me, that's where I like put my foot down, because I know my leaders, I know my hiring managers, they don't want to deal with the agencies. They're going to point you over to me anyways. That's what they want to do. So I'm trying to save you a step. And if they're going to go around me to go to them because they feel that's what they have to do, guess what? They're not going to want to work with you because you're not following the rules, right? So I try to be very open with the recruiters of like, this is why we do it this way. One of the things that I'm actually really excited about doing is being able to get our recruiters to submit their candidates directly in our ATS. I'm trying to get that to work right now. So as soon as I get that done, I'm like, very excited. It's the tech wins. It's funny because you mentioned Tim Sackett's podcast that we did. I think it just posted the week before last.
Yeah.
And one of the things he mentioned is the vendor management system being like the biggest challenge in recruiting, and how if you utilize one, then it's the recruiters they don't even talk to the candidates. They just shove them in there, and then it's just time stamped. So whoever gets that candidate first gets the fee for it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not properly screened. Do you have any concerns about that?
Not really, and the reason why is because of the agencies that I'm going to be giving the jobs to. It's not going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be, I'm going to call my recruiter at, agency and say, okay, I'm the one who's delegated, who has logins into the system. And I think because they know me well enough that if they submit candidates that are not qualified, if they submit candidates that have not been screened properly, I'm not going to call them the next time the job's open. So I try, I'm hoping this is more about saving time on our side of uploading resumes and trying to streamline a little bit more process. But that comes along with having really good relationship with your agency recruiters, because they know they don't want to, kind of potentially ruin that connection.
One of the first times I worked with a VMS was with Live Nation Entertainment when they bought Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And so we were so excited because we're like, oh, look at all these job orders we're getting. And it was almost overwhelming just how many positions were coming in. And it's just because they were like re-engineering their entire process. I'm curious how companies set that up, whether they, and I know it's different by every company. So I'm curious what you guys might do. Would you give the recruiter fee to somebody? Would you do the recruiter fee per job order, or would it be like database, like all my positions, like on the whole?
No, it would be per job. So the way that our applicant tracking system is set up is that you have to specify the position that the agency has access to see that role. And so,
smart.
Yeah, so then I'm able to really delegate it to which agency recruiter. Because when I'm going to try it out, I'm going to say like, let's say, you're my marketing recruiter, you're my tech recruiter, and I'm going to try them out with these two just to tell me how it feels, kind of getting feedback and making any tweaks. And then it'll be more like, okay, let's say I have 3 agencies that I work with for tech. Maybe all 3 will be able to submit candidates that way, but then they'll be able to say it's theirs, and hopefully with that timestamp, it's whoever gets in first is the one who gets credit for them. But it'll be per job versus a free-for-all, because it makes sense to have that vendor of like, you open it up and everybody can submit it, and it's giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
Because I've been on that side before, and I've seen that on internally and externally. So this is interesting. You have so many initiatives coming forward and technologies that you're using. Mm-hmm. I want to end with a couple questions. One, okay. What's your tech stack, and what's your technology stack?
Our tech stack for the company is .NET. So we do have SQL as well.
Okay. Well, in recruitment, what your applicant tracking?
Me, right? Are we talking about me?
Yeah,
so our ATS is, we have Vibe as our applicant tracking system, and HRIS. So those are the ones that are connected. And we have ADP as our payroll system.
Really cool. Do you guys use any chatbots or any analytics tools like Ideal or anything like that?
No, not yet. I mean, we also just brought on board TechRecruit to start using texting as part of our outreach to customers, to our candidates. And, but this is the fun part of when you roll out a system and you just it's a funny story. I realized that it would probably be easier if we have a field to download everybody's phone numbers to be able to obviously use our new TechRecruit. And I can't do that because everything's connected separately with Vibe. And so I have to go in and develop like a separate application process so people can type in their own phone number. So then I could use that as to be able to download it into report. So my recruiter isn't manually uploading all the phone numbers into the TechRecruit app. So, or a website. So those are the things that you run into in terms of when you're launching new technologies, is you just don't think about it because you think it works. So we use TechRecruit as something that's new, and I looked into using other things like HireTool or something like that, but we decided to pull away from that because we had so much stuff that was rolling out. I know CRM is something that's really popular with recruiters, but I don't think we're there yet. Maybe next year we'll be able to investigate using a CRM. But again, that's the mentality of marketers, right? It's using these marketing tools.
Yeah, it is becoming one of those things where there's so many tools out there, and the question is, what do we need? What don't we need? And then there's when you run into those issues of trying to sync them together, that something doesn't work, and then it takes you all this time to try to get a workaround, or okay, I don't want my recruiter to have to upload all this information. How can we make this more easier? Because that's what technology is supposed to do. It's supposed to be easy for you to use and make your process better.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just being able to understand the questions to ask when you're implementing something like this. I learned so much from our last implementation of what to ask and what not to ask, or making sure that I was asking. And a big part of it is you take so much for granted when you go from one tool to another. You just assume that they're going to do it, and then you realize maybe not. So, but it's all part of the learning process, and you just kind of take it and you move on to the next step.
I think it just goes back to one of the first things you said on our call, and it was, well, you alluded to this. It's you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what questions you should be asking until something happens. You're like, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. So that kind of can be a scary thing, being able to ask the right questions. Sarah Brennan, who was on my last podcast, she was working with Josh Burson for Deloitte, and she said, I am often in this position where I am a translator for
Mhm.
HR technologies and the companies where they have this need and they have all these things that they want to do, but then the technology says, well, this is what they can do, and the HR professional or the buyer is sitting there going, tears in headlights, and she goes, well, this is what they really can do, that
Yeah.
translation part.
Exactly. What's funny, because it is one of those, it's a skill set that you kind of don't know is needed, and you don't even know where it could come into play. But I really enjoyed listening to her podcast, because it's something that my boss made a comment when I was so excited that I did the field for the phone number, and I got it working to the best of my ability. Now it's like in testing mode with my ATS, and she goes, have you thought about being an implementation specialist with a company? Because you can speak both languages and you're really technical. And I was like, I'm good. I figured this out. And it just worked out. But the thing is, you're right. It's like there is a need for people who can be able to do that translation, because for HR professionals that don't understand that part of it, understanding what the aggregator will do with their job link, it'll make all the difference in the world to streamline their process. And it's really amazing. And I really loved hearing her, your interview with her. It was kind of one of those like, ding, makes sense. Okay, good.
That's the whole goal, is to help each other out. And I know so many people are going to benefit from this conversation. And so I thank you so much for being on here. I wanted to ask you one last question. And maybe I know the answer to it, but so we have a conference coming up, and we have 3 tracks. One is for the C-suite, one's for managers who are managing recruiters, and the other track is for sourcers and recruiters. Training-wise, what training do you feel would be most beneficial for those who are in your position?
Training in general, I think what I think would be really beneficial is really honing in on data and kind of like the terminology. I think that was the biggest eye-opener for me when I was talking to my VP and I was talking to my the marketers, my team, and just being able to kind of, it almost was a light bulb moment for me, because I think I mentioned this to the CEO when I talked to him about something. I said it was really difficult to understand what I thought I knew. In my gut, it's like, it's not working, but I don't know why. So being able to really concentrate on finding the data to tell the story that I knew was true. And it could have totally invalidated what I thought, but I wanted something to be able to hone in on what I felt was going right or going wrong. And bringing in that advisory firm to really do that analysis, being able to look at the data, validate some of the stuff that we learned, but also bring it together from my team, my internal team, and say, actually, if you look at it through this lens, it might be a little bit more clear, which just, to me, was amazing. So I think maybe kind of being able to do some of those translations, a little bit of what was talked about, with Sarah, of having somebody who can translate that might be pretty awesome.
So in your process of discovering data, do you want to share maybe one insight that you learned in your own processes, or maybe something that you gleaned from your data?
Yeah, one of the things that I learned was to look at, the biggest thing that I walked away with was something that the advisory group kind of gave us, was looking at the group, at the jobs kind of in a grid, and really understanding where we should be concentrating our time and effort versus jobs that are not easy to fill, but you know what? It's okay. Like being able to triage the positions. Because I think that in the past, it's like I got a job and I would go. And I just really wouldn't, not that I didn't question it, but I would go. That's my job, is to fill the job. But it never crossed my mind to really wonder, is my time the most effective to be spent filling this position versus giving it to an agency? Because maybe they would be able to fill it out faster, or I could be, or my time could be used to find this data analyst position because this role is very incredibly valuable to our organization. And it's not to say other positions aren't, but there are other positions that might be easier to fill for an agency versus me. Maybe, an accounts payable person might be easier, or clerk or manager of accounting would be easier for an agency to fill than it would be for me because I need, because there's other roles. Our call center is, for example, there's a lot of people we need to talk to, but those are the people dealing with our customers. Those are the people that we need to make sure that they're the right ones coming in the door. So being able to kind of understand that my time is actually what's important too, not just the roles that are being filled, was a little bit of an eye-opener, and it just made me feel a little like, all right.
That is fantastic. I never thought about the grid aspect being something that you were like, wow, this is something we could really learn from. Because we talk a lot about workforce planning and how many candidates we're going to need going forward and what that recruitment's going to look like and how long it's going to take. But I haven't really heard of a company actually developing a grid from their data that says these type of positions might be better suited for an agency versus us filling internally.
Yeah. I think it was one of those things that it's really just about the functionality of the role and how that equals our time and our brain power and how we can be more effective with it.
So last thing, maybe I already said this. Last question. What advice would you give to a company, a talent acquisition professional who is just starting on their data evaluation journey?
Oh, if I were to do it all over again, I would really pay attention to how you collect data. I feel like the one thing I would say is really concentrate on what's important to your company and what you want to get out of that data, because you're going to hear different things like cost of hire, speed to hire, all these, the conversion percentages. Really understand what's important for your organization and find data and then pull the data for that. Because in the end, it's not about talent acquisition analytics in terms of an industry. It's what matters to your organization. And what's important for them is going to be different for us. And it's okay. It's totally okay. It's what works for everybody.
So there's not one size fits all.
Exactly. And I think that's probably was a hard lesson to learn at the beginning, because you want to adhere to what the standards are. And once you kind of get past that, it almost seems like the world is open, like the oyster has been opened and everything's available, because you can become really creative to be able to understand what it is that you want to report on. For us, our company, as I said, we'll use agencies. So cost of hiring, while it's important, it's not the end all be all. For us, it is about speed and making sure that we're meeting the promise that we give to the hiring managers, which is the expected target start date. That's what we want to report on, is making sure that we're getting candidates in and how close we get to that, or if we passed it, do we need to revise it? So to us, that's important, because for us, it's the relationship that we have with our customers, which is our hiring managers. That's what we want to report on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the TechRecruit podcast, Melissa. If anybody listening would like to get hold of you or follow up questions with you or apply to your positions, where can they find you?
You could find me on LinkedIn with Melissa Arvanitaki, and you could also go to Outlook Amusements. If you click on the inquiry at outlookamusements.com, emails will come to me. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have my name kind of linked somewhere when you post it, but I'm around. Outlook Amusements. Once you know us, you can't forget us.
Thank you so much. You have yourself a great afternoon.
You
Bye,
too.
Melissa.
Thank you so much. Bye.